Today, we're taking a journey back over 3,000 years to experience what life was really like for the backbone of ancient Egyptian civilization, the farmers who fed an empire. Forget the pyramids and pharaohs for a moment. We're going to follow Khenti, a fictional but historically accurate farmer, through a single day during the inundation season around 1250 BCE. We'll see what he ate, how he worked, and what daily life was truly like along the banks of the Nile. So grab your virtual linen tunic and let's step into ancient Egypt. The sun hasn't yet broken over the eastern desert, but Kinney is already stirring in his small mud brick home. It's around 5 a.m., and in ancient Egypt, you worked with the sun. There was no sleeping in. Kinney's house is simple but functional. The walls are made from Nile mud mixed with straw and dried in the sun. The floor is packed earth, and the flat roof serves as extra storage and sleeping space during hot summer nights. His home has about 3 rooms, a main living area, a small kitchen with a clay oven, and a storage room for grain and tools. He sleeps on a simple bed frame with a woven reed mat. His pillow? A wooden headrest that looks incredibly uncomfortable to us, but helped keep bugs out of his hair and kept him cool during warm nights. Khenti lives with his wife Nefret, their 3 children, and his elderly mother. Everyone is starting to wake up. The family doesn't have much, some pottery vessels, a few wooden stools, linen sheets, and most importantly, their farming tools. Nefret is already at the clay oven, rekindling yesterday's coals. Breakfast in ancient Egypt was simple but nourishing. Today they're having a flat bread made from emmer wheat, the staple of every Egyptian meal, some leftover lentils from yesterday, a few spring onions, and if they're lucky, some dried fish. They wash it down with beer, but not the kind you're thinking of. Egyptian beer was thick, nutritious, and had much lower alcohol content than modern beer. It was safer than drinking Nile water and provided valuable calories. Even children drank a weak version. The family eats quickly, sitting on the floor or on low stools. There's not much conversation. Everyone knows their tasks for the day. Kenny's 2 oldest children, a boy of 12 and a girl of 10, will help in the fields. The youngest, just 5 years old, will stay with grandmother. As the sun rises, painting the desert cliffs gold and pink, Khenti gathers his tools, a wooden hoe, a sickle with a flint blade, and a basket. He wraps a simple linen kilt around his waist. That's his entire work outfit. His children and wife dress similarly in simple linen garments. The walk to the fields takes about 20 minutes. Khenti doesn't own his land. Technically, it all belongs to Pharaoh, but it's administered by the local temple. Khenti farms about 3 aruras, roughly 2 acres, and in return, he owes a significant portion of his harvest in taxes. Along the way, he greets neighbors. The farming community is tight-knit. Everyone knows everyone. They share tools, help with harvests, and rely on each other when the Nile floods unpredictably or when tax collectors come calling. It's late October, during what the Egyptians called Ake, the inundation season. The Nile has flooded, depositing rich black silt across the fields. This is Egypt's secret weapon, the reason civilization flourished here. No fertilizer needed, the Nile does it all. But the flood is starting to recede, and there's work to do. Khenti and his son are repairing irrigation channels damaged by the flood. These channels are crucial. They allow farmers to direct water to their fields even after the Nile recedes. This is backbreaking work. Using wooden hoes in their bare hands, they dig and shape the mud, reinforcing channel walls and clearing debris. The mud is thick and heavy. The sun is getting hotter. Within an hour, they're covered in sweat and dirt. Khenti's daughter works nearby with her mother, pulling weeds from the edges of the field and preparing the ground for planting. In a few weeks, when the water fully recedes, they'll plant emmer wheat and barley, the crops that keep Egypt alive. Around mid-morning, a figure approaches, a scribe from the temple, accompanied by 2 assistants. Khenti's heart sinks a little. The scribe carries a writing palette, papyrus, and most importantly, measuring tools. The scribe is here to assess the fields and estimate the coming harvest. This will determine Khenti's tax burden. The scribe wears clean white linen and carries himself with authority. He's literate in a society where maybe 1% of people can read and write, and he knows it. Khenti, son of Penwer, the scribe announces, reading from his records, "Your plot measures 3 aruras. The flood was good this year. We expect." He pauses, calculating. 15 sacks of grain at harvest. Khenti's stomach tightens. 15 sacks is a lot, almost half of what he might realistically harvest. But he doesn't argue. Arguing with scribes leads to beatings or worse. He nods respectfully. The scribe makes notes on his papyrus and moves on to the next farmer. These records will eventually make their way to the provincial governor, and perhaps even to Pharaoh's treasury at Thebes. This is the reality of being an ancient Egyptian farmer. You work the land, but you don't truly own its produce. By noon, the heat is intense. The family retreats to a shady spot beneath a date palm near their field. This is the customary break time. No one works through the worst heat of the day. Nefret has brought lunch in clay pots, more bread, some cucumber and lettuce from their small garden plot, dried dates, and more beer. Occasionally, they might have cheese made from goat milk, but not today. Meat is rare, maybe a few times a year during festivals. Fish is more common, but still a luxury. The ancient Egyptian farmer's diet was about 70% bread and beer, with vegetables and legumes making up most of the rest. As they eat, Khenti's son asks about the festival coming up, a celebration for Osiris, god of agriculture and the afterlife. There will be music, dancing, and maybe even some roasted duck. The boy's eyes light up at the thought. These festivals are the highlights of the farming calendar, brief moments of joy and community in an otherwise grueling existence. After the break, work resumes, but at a slower pace. Khenti checks his boundary stones, simple markers that indicate where his plot ends and his neighbor's begins. Disputes over boundaries were common and could lead to legal proceedings. His neighbor, Amenhotep, is working nearby with his oxen, preparing to plow. Oxen are valuable. Khenti doesn't own any and must borrow or rent them when needed, usually by trading labor or a portion of his crop. The afternoon work is different. Today, Khenti is gathering reeds from the canal edge. These have multiple uses. They'll be woven into baskets, mats, and even small boats. Nothing is wasted in this society. His wife and daughter are collecting dung from a passing herd of cattle. Mixed with straw, this will become fuel for cooking fires. In a landscape with few trees, dry dung is precious fuel. As the sun begins its descent toward the western desert, the realm of the dead, Khenti and his family trudge home. They're exhausted. Every muscle aches. This has been their life every day for as long as they can remember, and it will continue until they're too old to work. Back home, Nefret prepares the evening meal while Khenti repairs a sandal. The children feed their few chickens and goats. Grandmother is grinding grain on a stone quern. Tomorrow's bread depends on tonight's grinding. Dinner is similar to breakfast and lunch: bread, lentil stew, onions, and beer. After eating, there's little energy for anything else. Khenti sits outside for a few minutes, looking at the stars beginning to appear. He thinks about the harvest to come, the taxes he'll owe, whether his son will become a farmer too, or perhaps learn a trade. He thinks about the gods. Will Osiris bless the harvest? Will Happy, god of the Nile flood, be generous next year? These thoughts are interrupted by Nefret calling him inside. The day is ending. And that's a day in the life of an ancient Egyptian farmer, one of millions who lived and died along the Nile, whose names we'll never know, but whose labor built one of history's greatest civilizations. Khenti's life was hard by our standards, but it had its rewards: family, community, the satisfaction of harvest, and the eternal hope that in the afterlife, the fields would be eternally green and the work light. The ancient Egyptians believed that even in death, the blessed would farm, but in the field of reeds, the grain grew effortlessly tall, the water was always sweet, and no scribe came to collect taxes. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please like and subscribe.